Hey there, everyone. Welcome. Happy Wednesday. I am going live today as part of our Off the Clock summer series where I'm doing LinkedIn Lives every single Wednesday at 1 p.m., almost all summer long. And today I am sharing 10 job search hacks for productivity and efficiency in your job search. So I'm really excited. I love helping people break the job search process down and make it work for them. Even if they are super busy or having trouble getting motivated, I still know that a successful job search is possible for you. So I'm really excited for today's topic. If you're new here and we haven't met before, hi, welcome. I'm Jenn Walker Wall. I'm the founder of Work Wonders Careers, where we help mission-driven professionals make moves that matter through resume writing, career strategy, and community. And I have been hosting these lives on and off for the last several months or so as a way to help educate and inspire job seekers and professionals, and really offering ways for all of you to take action. That's really the goal. We're not doing any kind of theoretical high-level stuff here. We really want to make sure that you can leave our lives with something that you can implement right away. And hopefully from today's live, there are several things that you can implement right away. And so I'm excited to dive in and to have you here. I'm just going to give folks a minute or two to get the notification and join us live. And for those of you who are watching the replay, because there was a little time issue, thank you for watching the replay. Feel free to leave questions here, and I can, if you tag me, I can answer them even if you're not watching live. So feel free to do that if you'd like. If you want to get notifications in the future, you have a couple of options. You can follow me here on LinkedIn. Just go over to my profile and hit follow. I also have kind of an archive of highlights of previous lives that may be of interest to you, covering pretty much all of the most critical topics. And of course, you can visit our website, workwonderscareers.com, which we just gave a little refresh to, and hop onto our mailing list if you prefer to hear about our events that way. We do send out emails about once a week or so, letting people know what's coming down the pipeline. So before we dive into today's hacks for efficiency here, what I want to just say is I want to just offer kind of a couple thoughts on this process, especially for people who are active job seekers. People more or less don't just come to us to find a job. They come to us to make a real purposeful and strategic career move, something that feels really aligned with who they are and what they're looking for, and something that's really oriented towards helping them in the long term. And so while you see me using language like hacks and talking about productivity and stuff like that, I want to be super clear that there really isn't a silver bullet for most job search processes. There really isn't something that you can snap your fingers. Like, this is something that takes place for most people. They want it to take hours and days, but it often takes more like weeks and months. Now, I think that there's a lot of good that can come from a job search with a runway that's a little bit more like months rather than days. But I do want to offer some ways for you to kind of better manage your time and think about what's going to actually move the needle on some of your job search process. So I'm offering these as things that you can do to kind of speed up your own process and make it more efficient. But I'm by no means suggesting that any of these are silver bullets. I try to really resist and help my clients resist the idea that there is just one single thing that you can do that's going to just transform your job search. It's really about consistency. It's really about repetition. And I know that's probably the last thing some of you want to hear, but that is what I find the case more often than not, is people do the same things over and over again. Things will, maybe they'll have a few good weeks that are consistent and then they'll fall off track a little bit. So we kind of just want to normalize the ups and downs of the process here. Hey, Gary, welcome. Thanks for saying hello. If you're here and you want to say hi, please feel free to say hi in the comments, and I'll stop periodically and take a look and make sure I'm keeping up with all of those. So if you're doing things over and over again, please know you could very well be on the right track. Like I said, lots of repetition here. You'll probably have to repeat yourself in the process. But what I want to offer are just some ways to maybe shift how you're spending your time or shift how you're thinking about spending your time here. And so with that in mind, let's dive in. Let's get started. So the first thing I want to suggest, and this may be counterintuitive and maybe it's not the right move for all of you, but I want to start by suggesting that maybe you should take a break from your job search process. Or maybe you just need a break in general. So whether you are in a job where you're really busy and overrun, or in a situation where you just haven't been able to carve out time and energy for your own job search, or if you have been job searching for a while and just not having luck and you're feeling really run down and burnt out, I know you may not want to hear this, but like, you could use a break possibly. The job search is something that can drain the tank a lot. You know, whether our clients are looking for jobs, applying for jobs, interviewing for jobs, they're using up their tank, right? They're using up their fuel. And so it's really important that people give themselves permission to not wait till the job search is over to take a break, but to give themselves breaks in the meantime. When a few months ago, maybe it was like couple months ago, I did a live on the 6 steps that we have in our framework that help people transform their job search. And one of those pillars of our framework is care. And that includes self-care. And so doing things like shutting down email, using your PTO, taking vacations, taking breaks, you know, not checking email after 6 p.m., those sorts of things can be really, really helpful. It can help refuel the tank. It means that when you start your job search process back up, you will be starting from a place where you have focus and energy and enthusiasm, instead of feeling kind of resentful that it's taking up so much of your time. So you may have a little bit of FOMO, but what we really want to do is like, let's help you bring your best self. And if you take a week off from the job search process, and you find that there were jobs that you would like to apply for when you can come back, a week is not too late to apply to some of those opportunities. So try to really think about how you can take care of yourself in this process, because even though that will take time away in the short term, what I believe it provides back to your job search in terms of energy and focus can be really priceless. The second step I want to offer, and these aren't really in any particular order, to be honest, so I don't want you to think I've ranked them in any way, but just the second step in general is getting organized. Like, proper preparation is so critical. That's also a step in our framework. And so is assessment, another step in our framework. So if you don't have a way to track your work, or you're not tracking your work, or you're just kind of applying to jobs willy-nilly and you're not really sure what you're doing, like, then it's really hard for us to think about how to strategically assess where your job search stands and what's working for you. So if you are someone in a more exploratory place, your tracking may look more like a journal or a notepad or a spreadsheet. So a lot of my MBA clients love to track things on spreadsheets. Some people really like, to do self-reflection and something that feels more like a journal. No wrong way to do it there. And if you're applying for jobs, you may be tracking the jobs that you're interested in, what you're applying for, what you're getting interviews for, how those interviews are going, who you're meeting with, right? And so why does this save us time? And there's a few reasons, but the big one is that the job search process has so many emotional ups and downs that it can be really hard to know where we stand and what we've put into the process. Sometimes people overestimate how many applications they've put out because they just really, really want a new job. And that's not the part that gets us a new job. We have to be consistent in our efforts. Now, if you are more exploratory, what you're keeping track of is less about applications and perhaps more about insights. Like, what are you learning? Who are you speaking to? What kind of journal prompts are you responding to? What are you learning about yourself and your goals and what you'll need in the future? This can help you set really clear priorities for your job search. So if you don't have a good sense of what your North Star is, and I think your North Star shouldn't really be just about job titles, but should be about qualities of a job, what you'd really like to do and what you'd like that to look like for you in your next step, then it's really hard to organize your time and spend your time wisely. So think about where you might need to just spend a little bit more time having some infrastructure for that job search so that you know exactly where you stand in the process. You know what actions you're taking, and you know what you're taking away from those actions. That's going to help us pinpoint like where the bottleneck might be, if in fact there is a bottleneck. Hey, Nicole, thanks for being here. Number 3, identify target roles. So this is another thing that I think some people do really well and naturally, and some people really resist. So I think looking at job postings is a great step, no matter whether you're applying for jobs, obviously you're looking at job postings, or if you're more exploratory, because they can be really affirming. And if they're not affirming, they can shift our attention in the right direction. One of the reasons that I think that people resist doing this is they start to feel like they're not qualified enough, or they're really far away from getting the kinds of jobs they want. But I want to kind of turn that on its head for just a moment and think about, instead of focusing on qualifications, what if you looked at jobs that you were really excited about and intrigued by, and then collected a few of those and looked for some broad patterns? That could give you a really good sense of your goals, your interests, like what's resonating with you, and give you some good insight about how not just to spend your time, but how you might need to strategically position yourself in resumes and interviews and LinkedIn and networking here. So I want you to really think about how you can use job postings, even for jobs that feel like too far away or you're just not qualified for. But coming back to that point, I often give the advice, like, don't look at jobs with regard to qualifications. But when this happens, when people bring me jobs that I've said don't pay attention to the qualifications, oftentimes they do bring jobs they're pretty well qualified for. They might be, a little adjacent to some of the bullet points, or they might be missing one thing or two things, but there's usually something that they can speak to that's really relevant here. So another reason that looking at job postings can be helpful is it's like a really great reflection mechanism, like forcing us to really think like, okay, I don't have this exact experience, but what kind of other relevant experience can I share here to speak to this so that they know that I'm capable of executing this kind of work or work at this level? So I want you to think about, is there room in your job search for you to focus on more specific jobs? Like if you feel like you're getting all over the place, this kind of exercise might help you reprioritize. And if you're more exploratory, this exercise can really launch you into job search mode much quicker than a lot of people think. All right, number 4. And this does come in order. You need to do number 3 before you can do number 4. Number 4 is sharing your job search with friends and colleagues, letting people know. I like to think of this as like activating your network. You're supposed to be using your network, but it's really kind of unclear what that means for some people. So maybe you've reached out and asked questions about how people like their employers or their jobs or their line of work. But what you can do when you have some sample target job postings is you can not only let people know, hey, I'm on the job market, but you can let them know, and here's what I'm looking for. One of the most common complaints I've heard from clients over the years is that they get pigeonholed and like they feel stuck, and their network might try to be helpful, but they're helping them find jobs that are too similar to what they've had previously and not aligned with what they want going forward. So an easy fix to this problem is to show people who are already engaged in your career and your professional development and growth what it is that you want, and let them know why. Let them know what you're bringing, to the table for these kinds of roles. Spending a few minutes alerting people who've already demonstrated a commitment to you and educating them about what you're actually looking for can keep people who are already invested in you more invested, and also more effective in being champions of what you actually want. So I always think it's a good problem to have if you're getting pinged for jobs you don't want, because it means people are thinking of you, but it is up to you to let those folks know what it is that you really want. And a little bit of work here can go a long way, because you're activating other sets of eyeballs essentially, and letting people know what you're open to, and through your network's conversations with their network, there's a lot of people kind of thinking about you at all times. So I think this is a really good thing to do. If your friends and colleagues and former colleagues don't know that you're job searching, letting them know and sharing an example of what you're looking for, great move. Number 5, I want you to think about practice writing your summary of qualifications. So you've probably heard me talk about summary of qualifications before. I talk about it quite a lot in our webinars and when I do resume lives here, which I will talk about resumes in more detail next week. But this is what we use at WorkWonders instead of a static summary at the top or an objective statement. So while I'll share more about this process next week, what I will say is, this is a great strategy because it summarizes your relevant experience right away for other people. And especially for people looking for growth or, transition opportunities, it's a great way to frame your whole candidacy with the most relevant experience to the potential employer. So what we do is we take the summary of qualification, we look at those qualifications that are on the job posting, and we summarize how you have that experience. And this is a process that takes some time, right? Because it has to be succinct, it has to be clear, it can't be more than 3 to 5 bullet points, has to be really easy to read quickly. And so this takes practice. I've been doing this for 7 years, but my clients have been doing it for days or weeks. And so I would say it takes about 4 or 5 times before people are comfortable doing this on their own without my help or supervision or support. So I want you to keep that kind of benchmark in mind, 4 to 5 times. And what I always tell my clients is I'd love for you to practice this now, even if you're not actively searching or this isn't a dream job that you're even interested in applying for. You can practice getting good at writing a summary of qualifications so that when the great job that you do want is posted, you're not trying to wing this for the first time. So we don't want to, ideally, we don't want to kind of be putting out those applications and trying these strategies for the first time for the job that we're super excited about. You can start practicing. Gary says, I get a lot of calls from subcontractors and the skills they send me don't. So I think something that's really interesting about this is subcontractors are kind of like recruiters for themselves, right? And so what could be going on is like they don't have anything other than what they have available at the moment. So what you might try to do there is like expand the network into something that is more aligned. Like, do they know people working on projects that are more aligned with what your skills are? Can you use LinkedIn to research subcontractors that may be more aligned to opportunities that you would be a good fit for? I think this happens because they just don't have anything available for what you're looking for at the moment. And so it's hard for them to kind of stay on top of it. Another thing you could do is just check back in with people periodically. Like maybe once a month you check in and say, I'm looking for projects related to X, Y, and Z. If you have anything, please feel free to reach out. Like you may need to be a little bit more proactive. You may also ask those subcontractors for referrals to other subcontractors that are working, with more aligned kind of opportunities too. Good question though, or good comment. All right, number 6, creating templates. Like I said, the job search is about repetition. I've already said that like 3 times. So I just want to make sure we drive that home. Resumes, cover letters, networking emails, follow-up emails, thank you emails. Like how many times are you doing these things? So I recommend not starting over from scratch every time you need one of these things. We have our job search ready webinar series over on our website, which is available for purchase. And that has several templates in there for these sorts of things. But I want you just to think like, do you have a resume template that's optimized for a couple of different roles that you're considering or a couple of different industries that you're considering? Do you have a couple cover letter templates that can be easily modified for different kinds of roles? Or maybe you're just good to go depending on what your job search looks like. Do you have, a thank you email that, is ready to go? Do you have a request email, like asking for an introduction email that's ready to go? Do you have thank you emails? Like a lot of our clients will create or modify the templates we have, use those, and we like to recommend using something like canned templates or just keeping them in a Google Doc library so that this process becomes a little bit more automated. We also recommend that our clients have, hey, Katina, we also recommend that our clients keep like a library of bullet points that they use in their summary of qualifications. So some of our clients actually have a library of these bullet points. And as you can imagine, that makes, revising your resume way less of a writing job and much more of like a copy and paste job. So by the time you've done a few of these, you should have like some significant content that you can use and reuse and repurpose for different kinds of opportunities. Staring at a blank page is never ideal. And also not customizing your messages and your resumes is also not ideal. So having a good template library can be such a game changer in terms of saving time and energy for this process. I do this for my business too. Like a lot of my emails I have saved in canned templates and pop them in, make the changes I need to. And it just like keeps things moving a lot more quickly than they would otherwise. Another thing here, I don't think I did. Actually, I'll get to this tip, so I won't jump ahead here. Number 7 is something we actually talked about last night in our office hours for Work Wonders & Co., which is where people have a lot of things to do and aren't really feeling confident about how they're managing their time. And so the 7th tip I have for you is to get super specific with how you want to spend your time. And so an example of this that I see pretty regularly is like people will say like fix resume, which is ambiguous. Like I wouldn't know exactly. To me, that's a project. That's not a task. So how I might help a client break that down is to say, let's update your resume. Make sure it's up to date and reflects your current job description. You'd be surprised how many resumes I get that don't have a current job description or achievements posted. Let's make sure that you have the space and structure for a summary of qualifications. Let's practice writing that summary of qualifications, right? Those are ways to get more specific with your time. And when we get specific, like we can kind of figure out like, how long is this going to take? Well, it's going to take, 15 minutes for me to add my current job description. It's going to take 20 minutes for me to practice writing a summary of qualifications. You can use timers here, which I think could be really helpful. So breaking down that process, actually, I'm in the process right now of following up with a bunch of people who just did a webinar with me. And instead of just saying like email people from webinar, I said, revise email that's going out to everyone, even though I'm sending it individually. And then I'll start doing 10 at a time so that I can just break that down for myself and like achieve milestones and not just say like send 60 individual emails all at once, because I don't know about you, but I don't have that kind of focus. So the more specific you can be, instead of like email network, email 5 friends, or draft email template and then email 5 friends. Breaking it down gives your time a clear job to do and makes your life a lot easier as you're trying to get through that to-do list. Small shifts like this will help you use your time better, help you make progress, even when you have really busy, stressful weeks, and offer a lot more focus for your job search. Yes, Katina, I'm listening and currently working. Gosh darn it, those darn jobs. Hey, Helen. Hey, Jody. Oh, it's so good to see you, Jody. Yes, this records automatically. It should anyways. So usually as soon as I'm done recording, the link is available for review. Yes, Jody, this is so common. Something I was just saying last night was applying and connecting are often more valuable than scrolling. And it's literally scrolling for jobs. I think scrolling for jobs can go on for a long time for a lot of reasons. But what I want to say or offer is that I think it becomes a real comfort zone for people. And what I also notice is it gives people a little bit of a false sense of like, what they're actually doing in their job search, because people can spend tons of time on LinkedIn and AngelList and Indeed and ZipRecruiter, but what we really want to be doing is creating opportunities for interaction. And so sometimes when people spend hours, they feel like they're spending hours in their job search, and they are, but that's not, scrolling alone is really not enough. And so what I suggested last night as a way for people to kind of consolidate this a little bit is like do a big scroll once a week, and then set a timer and do 20-minute scrolls or something like that on a daily basis. Like just catch what's at the top there, and do a deep dive in a concentrated, purposeful way, so it doesn't become like a daily habit of scrolling for hours. Another thing I see people do here is like they email themselves jobs, but they don't actually get to the application part. So this is where, something like getting specific, creating templates, right, practicing the summary of some qualifications can make your life a lot easier when it comes to applying for jobs. So some of you, before you get to that step, may be best suited by doing a little bit of self-reflection, making some infrastructure for your job search, including revising the resume and getting a template going, and then moving into the application phase. Okay. Number 8 is something I want to offer for people who might have the capacity to spend more than an hour at a time working on their job search. So this is for people who kind of like to batch their job search like once a week, perhaps, which is pretty normal. Not everyone can spend time daily or multiple times a week doing this. So this is number 8, is to plan a retreat day. And this is something that I used to actually build work wonders while I was still working full time. Like I didn't have the bandwidth at night to come home and work on a business, but like one weekend day a month, I could take like 3 or 4 hours and knock out a bunch of stuff. And that's what I did for many years. And so it's a tool that I offered to our clients who felt like they were struggling to kind of make progress after work in the evenings. They were just too wiped out. And they knew that the weekend was when they had the opportunity. So what it is what we consolidate a bunch of things that we would like to do and that we need to do that help move us in the direction of our job search. So that often looks like a combination of actually executing the work and some fun things mixed in there too. So I like to think of this as like a one person conference. Like if you were doing a conference for yourself, this is what the day would include. So for me, in addition to the work it took to create a business, like working on a website or writing a newsletter, I was also doing things like going for a walk, doing yoga, having a nice meal, like I would if I were going to a conference, right? And so what I think these do is like, it's both filling up the tank and also using some of that fuel to cross things off your list in like a consolidated way. And if 4 hours sounds like impossible for you, do not be too precious with this formula. You could do a 1 hour retreat. You could apply for jobs for 30 minutes and you could go for a 30-minute walk and then really feel like you are kind of, doing things in a balanced way. I do think the trick with a retreat day is not to just do work. We want there to be quality work, and filling up the tank is part of our work. I actually just had a client last night who was on vacation and like got a lead for a job opportunity. So I think that's a very good lesson for all of us, that job opportunities exist everywhere, even when we're on a break. Another thing you can do is, if you live with other people, is let people know what you're doing and ask for their buy-in. So like I used to tell my husband, like, I'm going to be busy. Don't ask me for anything, but like, let's plan on taking a break together, because a break is a scheduled part of my day. So this should feel good. If it feels like too much, do it for an hour, do it for 90 minutes. You could also do it on a weeknight. Maybe you like to work late at night and that works for you. So you don't have to make it look exactly like I did for it to be effective for you. Number 9 is going to be better for anyone who's like, I really don't have the bandwidth for a retreat day, Jen, like that. I don't have hours. I don't have the energy. I don't even want to put together an agenda for myself. No problem. So if you're listening to me and you're like, wow, retreat days must be nice, but I don't have that kind of time, I've got you too. And I've already referenced this. So number 9 is using a timer. This pairs very well with being very specific with how you're going to spend your time, and it provides some natural constraint. So if you're one of those people who's like, man, I always seem to get work done for my boss and meet deadlines in the office, but like when it comes to meeting my own goals, I seem to be pretty flexible and never actually get things done by my own established deadlines, you might want to consider experimenting with a little bit of a timer here. So I just use the timer on my iPhone. I don't use anything fancy. And it can be 10 minutes. It can be 20 minutes. Remember what I said earlier, that really this process is about consistency. And so, you could do a week of 20-minute timers, and at the end of the month, you'd still have like a retreat day for yourself. And when you're really clear about how you're going to spend your time, you do not need as much time as you think to make progress here. So this could be something very fun to experiment with. And you can see like, what can I get done in 10 minutes? And, as most of us know, like our to-do list just fills the time that we have. And when we consciously break up that time and give ourselves like 10 minutes, I'm going to write a draft email. 20 minutes, I'm going to send it to 3 people or as many people as I can in 20 minutes. It really kind of creates a little bit more structure for us, which can be helpful for people. And I want you not to think about whether 10 or 20 minutes is enough for a job search, because it's probably not. Part of the using a timer and using small blocks of time is really about consistency. So if you could do this 2 or 3 times a week or more, what would your job search look like a month from now? What would you be able to get done and lay the groundwork for? And for most people who do this, it's pretty significant. People resist it because they, I think, want to imagine that they'll have a lot more time at some point, or that they should have more time, or they should be making more time. This process does not have to look glamorous for it to be effective. So maybe you do something that's a combination of a retreat day with maybe some time, shorter blocks during the week. Again, not trying to be precious, we're just trying to give you some tools in your toolbox so that you can execute your process here. All right, I have one more tip. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Happy to answer any questions or hear any of your thoughts or concerns to any of these tips here. Number 10 is to create a submit ritual. So a lot of times people will say, I can't believe this perfect job is posted. I even have someone on the inside, who wants to pass my resume along. And I'm like terrified of actually hitting submit. Like it feels so scary to some people. So if you've attended, any of my webinars, especially on resumes or managing your job search, you might have heard me talk about having a submit ritual. But this is sort of a series of habits or tasks that you complete as part of submitting an application. But it could also apply to like sending networking emails if that feels hard. You probably have felt some kind of like nervousness or anxiety about turning in an application or asking someone for help. And that can take up a lot of time, right? Like, should I send this? How should I say this? Is this the right way to do this? So what I want you to do is come up with 2 or 3 things, simple things that you can do to feel good about the work that you're putting out there into the world one way or another. And let me just share sort of my resume process. The first time I look at a resume, I'll fix the structure, make sure it's easy to read, make sure there's space for the summary of qualification. Then I'll spend some time improving the content itself. Then I will sleep on it. I will look at it first thing in the morning because that's when I'm like most ready to go. And then I will send it back to the client. So think about like, what are the things that you could do? And eventually you get into the habit of like, you know exactly what this is going to look like. And it gets easier to send those resumes out. It gets easier to send out those emails that you might have on your to-do list. And it helps us kind of manage any tendencies to overthink or procrastinate or worry about, you know, is the language ideal? Like, you give yourself a chance to revise it. You give yourself a chance to make sure the content is good. And then you hit go. You might want to include something like asking a friend to proofread the email or something like that. So those are my 10 tips. I think if you were to try one or two of them this week, I think you'd feel really good shutting down your computer on Friday and feeling like, hey, I got a couple of things done. If you want to share with me what tip might be the one you try this week, I'd love to hear from you in the chat. You can feel free to drop that and let me know. You can also add any questions because I've got just a couple of announcements for those of you who are still here. Next week on the 16th, I'm talking about resume mistakes that job seekers make. So if you have more questions about your resume is not getting you traction, definitely come and ask your questions and hear about that because I love talking about resumes. And the week after that, the 23rd, I'll be talking about ways to build an authentic professional network that you'll actually be excited to use. Okay, that's not the whole title, but I really wanted to have a discussion about how to meet new people and leverage those relationships, not in a way that feels transactional, but that's going to help in the long run. And then after that, on the 23rd, we also have another round of Uncomplicate Your Job Search. And then on July 7th, we're actually having a group panel discussion, which I'm so excited about. I'm like a little bit nervous about managing the tech aspects of that, but everything should work just fine. So on July 7th at 1 p.m., I'm bringing a handful of friends and clients to discuss managing a mission-driven career. So if you are looking for mission-aligned work or have been thinking a lot in the last year or so about what that might look for you going forward, I hope you'll join us. You can visit our Work Wonders Careers page right here on LinkedIn to find those registration pages. And of course, if you have any questions, you know how to find me, workwonderscareers.com, or feel free to leave a question or a comment below in the chat, and I will definitely answer. Please make sure to tag me because I don't always see all the comments. So I hope you all have a really great week. Thank you so much. Oh, Laura, thank you. Open Excel and start a life planning. I love that. Good. I'm so glad. If you think I have energy for the job search, you should definitely come to my resume talk next week because I just get so jazzed. I think for me, I know a lot of people don't love coming into the job search space. They don't love needing to think about their resume. But for me, what this is really about is giving workers tools to manage their career. We don't have to be at the whim of our employer. We can take total ownership over what we have to offer and what we want to do and be strategic and intentional with our efforts to move our career in a different direction. So that's the part that I get really excited about. So if any of that appeals to you, please come to the rest of our talks this month. Like I said, we're taking a break on the 30th, but pretty much doing them weekly Wednesdays at 1 p.m. So thank you all so much for being here and for your trust. If you know someone in your network who might benefit from this, feel free to give this a share on LinkedIn. And otherwise, feel free to reach out if there's anything we can do. Stay cool. Have a great week.